Hello, I wanted to do a quick little video on beef and the problem in the American monopolistic, food prison that we're in sometimes that can feel like that. My name is Daniel. I'm a naturopath, and living in Europe for 15 years and coming back over here and being able to feel the difference not only in the way that you feel on these different foods, the beef, or even the labeling, the deception, some of these things. Also, what's happening in the toilet, the fecal matter, the color, everything. I've been able to analyze and figure out what's happening in this system. And one of the things you have to avoid is marbled meat or any sort of USDA meat in general. That's pretty much all of it because they have such a monopolistic control that they don't want any imported meats in here because it's going to reveal that they have to up their game. It's going to reveal how bad their meat is. Now, meat should not be marbleized. It's not meant to. It's meant to be like you have two principles in the body. As the way this is a good way to look at it. Can be helpful. You have kind of like this white principle, which is like a lot of testosterone. Serotonin, tryptophan, relaxation, parasympathetic. This kind of like relaxation part, which helps us to sleep better, calm the nervous system, etc. Lymph system, like all this like white detoxification and healing system, and then you have this red kind of system, which would be more like the testosterone, masculine or whatever. And this is all happening in each person, so it's not about masculine and feminine or whatever. And so it's like this red system, which is like action and virility and stamina and strength. And so these things, for example, you could say two elements that, compose this in the food are blood and milk, kind of. And they're very similar, blood and milk. I mean, they have different properties, but there's a similarity there. But they also contribute to different things. And so I know that in Jewish culture you keep them separated, the blood and the milk, but like that's not true for all cultures. But there's something to be said about these two forces in the body. And so what they've done with the American meat is they've combined them. They've combined the two elements. And so the problem is oh yeah, it tastes great or whatever, it feeds the soul or whatever, but it doesn't. Like for me, living in France for all those years, going to the butcher shop and having, a steak that's so red and so bright and so like whenever I take that, I get a redness here around the face, and it's kind of like a color jolt and also strength. And I haven't been able to reproduce that here because everything I'm touching, it doesn't give that strength. And so I'm like, wow, so we don't want to marble everything. We don't want to marble anything. I wouldn't want to be all marbleized either with my body, You want red to be red and white to be white. And so you have your butter and your fats and all these things, and then you have your steak. So steak is not, you can marinate it, you can tenderize it, you can do different things with it. You can cook it, you can eat it raw like tartare, like the French do, or you can just barely cook it, which has become more and more popular now. So that's why the meat's all, so, we always think it has to be more tender and everything because we're not doing it right. Like when things are more raw, at least on the inside, like, totally seared on the outside, looks like a great steak, but on the inside, like kind of almost raw, like close. And, when we get to that, we start to realize that the meat's a lot more tender. So especially grass-fed meat. So we've just like taken this whole thing, the wrong way. And so this is and trying to get around that, I've used a lot of beef. Like I order steaks online from different farms that I know are not using soy feed, and they have respectable practices, Amish, and not always Amish either. I'm not saying they're perfect, but just pick the right people based on my intuition, and soy free and GMO free and all this stuff, and they send me articles about organic glyphosate, which is amazing that that even exists as a term. But so even in the organic world, you can get in trouble. Of course, I mean, it's just a label, right? Like they can, anybody can get in there, lawyers can get in that label, But so trying to find proper meat is not easy. One of the best ways to get around this is probably to employ everything from livers, like chicken livers from soy-fed animals, beef liver, as kind of like additions to the diet in order to counterbalance and get the blood back a little bit, because you need the blood healing properties of these things. And if they're no longer in the meat, we have to find it in other areas. So liver, even liver pills for people that don't like liver, it's not the same, but like, and blood, which usually you can buy beef blood from Asian markets, it usually comes from the Philippines, it's not from China. And so these elements need to be reincorporated into foods. Like, I mean, I used to make amazing chicken liver pate, and when I started making it in America, I found it was all pink. I was like, what happened there? It's not the right color, it's not the right taste. So I added a little bit of this beef blood to it, and now I have this most amazing pate. People comment on it. I'm like, wow, this is just like, it has the right color, it has the, and it's hard to get that because the soil, you can't overcome the soil without an equivalent. And the equivalent of soil is blood. I mean, at least as far as human versus terrestrial, like that's the equivalent. And even if you go to the bathroom, you'll see that your fecal matter is much more better for compost, and better for, so there's a connection, and you got to keep that connection, And as a naturopath, we read that, we studied actually coproculture, which is reading your fecal material, and so these are important ideas we can't forget about. The body will adapt, of course, to this soy-fed diet, and it'll try to do its best. But like, there's another way out because it won't. In the end, it'll get us all because of the. Look at what happens when you get to your 50s and 60s and all the medicine starts coming in. Like, so that's not the way to go out, or even to your best years of your life. The kind of the reculting of your life and harvest of your life is just destroyed by medication. So turning this around is very important. So using blood, using liver, these need to be staples. Also organ meats. I mean, what the taco truck movement, it started because people were using organ meats. That's what they were using, the Mexicans. And that's what we were going for, liver and lung and all this stuff that was being chopped up into these amazing tacos because we didn't have it anymore. And so now it's become this big thing, and now it's just become cheap. It's no longer what it was before. But we got to get back. Got to get back to these organ meats and how to use them, make them into soups, make them into this, make them into that. Learning to cook again. So that is what I would recommend for the beef. I would also recommend maybe lamb, from New Zealand for a while to get by. Pork. If you're going to use pork, then you can import generic brands of like Parma style ham. Look them up. You can find them online. And they're about $200 for a shank, but it's a lot less expensive than it's going to cost you in any other format. And then you have it for 6 months. You can throw it in the bottom of your fridge, and it'll just sit there for 6 months. Put a little piece of plastic over it, cut when you need. You won't be able to cut it as thin, but you don't want that anyway, because when you cut it a little bit thicker, it's better for the satiety or whatever for the body system to be able to have something to eat. When things are super thinly sliced and all perfect like that, the problem is the body just, the body needs to chew as well. There's actually endorphins which are produced through chewing. So there's a need for all these things. I mean, and I guess with chicken, ordering soy-free chickens, soy-free eggs, do your best, but like I said, the livers and the liver pate and this whole world needs to be exploding again. And the black breads and the blood puddings and these worlds need to come back in. And they're going to heal us. They were right under our noses. And so simple. And so we have to get back. And if you need any recipes or you want to chat about it, I know a bunch of very simple ways to use it. I mean, like I'll just throw potatoes, and so I have a little food processor, so I'll just food process a few potatoes and then throw that in some half olive oil, half butter kind of mix, let them fry, and then I just throw the chicken livers, the frozen chicken livers on top. If I could find them fresh, soy-free, I would, but I can't so far. And so throw those on top, and then throw one container of the beef blood that's from the Asian market from the Philippines on top, and then let all that sit down. You can put like cumin, or you can put, I don't use cumin, but like caraway or different types of spices, salt, stuff like that. I don't like a lot of spice, but you can actually even go sugar. You can sugar it up a little bit too with like some coconut sugar, and you can kind of turn it something a little bit sweet. But whenever you're done, you take that whole mix and then you put it back in the food processor and you make this kind of like paste, but it's not a paste. It looks kind of like chocolate mousse. If you've ever made chocolate mousse, it looks exactly like it. Like you can almost not even tell the difference between chocolate mousse and that. And then you just put it in these ramekins and it just perfectly seals, and it just has this perfect aspect to it. Um, and then I just eat a couple of these. It's not like a bowl of dirt because it doesn't taste like that, but like it's amazing. We need to get back to the soil. We need to bring soil back into us. And so that's what it's doing. So at least on a weekly basis, something like that could work. Um, and that's pretty much it. Actually, I'm going to cook that right now because it's time to eat. Thanks. So hope I was able to help somebody.